Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds.
Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Welcome to I Don't Need an Acting Class with Milton Justice.
This was the thing I was having with Greg. I said, you have this audition. And I said, so really, you look at the whole thing. You say, I've got overnight, so pick two things. But pick the two important things. So, I mean, you basically do things, what's the sequence of thoughts? There's a chunk. First we talk about this, then we talk about this, then we talk about this. I have to own the chunks. I have to own what I'm talking about. I have to know what I'm talking about. And if I go from one chunk to the next, then I know just in the back of my mind, my relationship with each one of them is different. Now, oddly enough, the new guy that I'm working with, who I've been coaching for the audition for this musical, first of all, he was trained as an opera singer and then went into musicals and has done fairly well. I mean, he's actually done really well. And so this is like he's down in the final for this pre-Broadway tryout. So for him, you see, it's different with every actor. His training is in musical. And so when I was working with him, he had to do 2 songs and 3 scenes. And one of the scenes has 4 different parts to it, 4 different characters. I mean, in other words, this is a guy that it's based on a Michael J. Fox movie, The Secret of My Success. And so it's a guy that passes himself off as a suit in a corporation. And so, but he's still working in the mailroom. So in the first one, he has to have this particular thing because he runs into one of the other board of directors. And then there's this thing where the elevator dings and Lester from the mailroom steps out. And then the next one, Lester goes back in, and then Christy, the girl that he likes, steps out. So in other words, it's very, very clear how they are. But working with Daniel, he said, oh, you're talking about having different colors. Now, that's very interesting to me because it is what I'm talking about when going thought by thought through a monologue. Stella would use the word colors, but I never use the word colors with actors because it's like a vocabulary that has in it the possibility of playing an effect. Daniel is musical, so he knows what that means because he sung opera. So it's like he knows when the notes go a certain direction that the composer is giving it a different color, and he can use that word. I would never use the word with any of you. I specifically will say, what is your relationship to this chunk? What is your relationship to this? What is your relationship to this? Now, the interesting thing about it is when you're committed to that, that's what frees you up. It frees you up because you know what you're talking about. It frees you up because you know what your relationship is to it. And if you build it out loud, if you, in other words, if you talk it out, I build an attitude towards it. But it's, look, it's so damn much. I mean, in the first scene working with Daniel, he's just faked it the day before a board of directors meeting. And so he doesn't know how he's doing, and he runs into a board of director. A guy walks up and says, hey, Brantley. And so it just was a matter of building the relationship with this guy. And not doing what the line said, which was, "Hi, Lester," or whatever it was, which reads like, "Hi, Lester." And I said to him, I'm going to break you of the habit of being in a musical. He did very well, though. He took the abuse very well. I was extremely impressed. You have this kind of test thing with actors, and you throw something out, and depending on how they respond to it, then you know what to do. I had the same thing when I was coaching Patrick Stewart, and it was for a dubbing session. I took a chance, and I said, "Patrick, what about if this was the first time he'd done it?" And he paused for a second, and he said, "Oh, that's very good." So then, all right, I'm going to be fine with Mr. Stewart for the next 2 days while we loop this movie. Anyway, it's not as easy as you keep trying to make it, Kareem. I'm sorry.
No. I know it's very difficult, but what I was trying to say is that is one of many things that an actor.
I know, but if you go through this, these are all the things an actor has to do. You'll go insane. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like all of a sudden, Greg has this audition for this thing, and so you look at it and you say, "I'm going to work on the character and I'm going to work on the sequence of thoughts." Finished. But you have to know what it is. You have to know what it is, and you have to know how to do it. If you, and you wouldn't, Kareem, but if you were doing Ted Quinn as an audition on Wednesday that you got on Tuesday, and you were doing this monologue, you might say, I know about the depression. And you might have a very, very quick thought about the depression. It was difficult. It was money. People were doing that. Okay, that's what I know. But, if I were pulling it together, I'd say he's the president of a corporation. So I make a character choice. And then I would be specific what he's talking about. I hope Daniel gets this part because he's been working really hard on it. The music is difficult, and his voice teacher is in Boston, I think. So he's been working with him on the songs and me on acting the songs. And look, here's the thing that he said. And he said, most of my actor training, and you all will know this, most of my actor training has been just talk naturally. Don't prepare too much. Then it won't be spontaneous. And so he said, I think it's probably okay for when you do like a 3-line part, although Andrea had a 2-line part, and we worked an hour on it. But if you're going in for the lead in a Broadway musical, it's like you really got to know some stuff. You can't just go out there and throw it in. So you begin to figure out piece by piece, what do I need for this piece?
I Don't Need an Acting Class is hosted and created by Milton Justice. Senior producer is me, Walker Vreeland. Director of online media is Evan Sollers. And music is by Jeffrey Keyser. The opening piece tomorrow is from his latest album, Playdate, featuring Shedrick Mitchell on organ, Ron Blake on sax, Richie Goods on bass, Ayushi Karnik and Nir Felder on guitar, and Kendrick Scott and Manyungo Jackson on drums. And what you're hearing now is M's Bedtime Blues from the same album. You can find out more about Jeffrey Keyser on his website, jeffreykeyser.com. That's Jeffrey with a G-E-O. Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps us reach more people, makes a huge difference. You can also follow us on Instagram at I Don't Need an Acting Class. And be sure to check out our website, idon'tneedanactingclass.com. You can see every episode we have ever released. You can find out more info about the book. You can order the book. And please continue to send your acting questions, comments, reflections to Milton. It actually helps us figure out what we're going to cover. And he'll either address your question on the podcast or he will write you an in-depth email directly. So he really, he takes his correspondence from listeners very seriously. You can reach him at questionsformilton@gmail.com. Again, that's questionsformilton@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you back here next week.